Greetings and welcome to another segment of CASA Cares. My name is James Washington. I'm one of the staff members here at Richland County CASA, and this is also the start of our holiday season. First of all, I want to thank the over 500 volunteers of our program, who over the past calendar year has worked with over 1,200 children in foster care in our community alone. At any given point, there's between 200 and 300 children in Richland County who are in foster care. Also, there's also another segment of our population, of our community, of those who are less fortunate than even our children. Today's program is going to assist us with that understanding. Today, we're very fortunate to have one of our volunteers, Ms. Charmaine Promise. She's actually on the board of directors for a program called Homeless, Helping Homeless. She's here to share with us the plight of our homeless population here in the Columbia area. First of all, Charmaine, thank you for coming. Tell us about Homeless, Helping Homeless.
Wow. Homeless Helping Homeless is a nonprofit grassroots organization started back in 2010. We got the idea from our Charlotte-based branch, which there is a Homeless Helping Homeless organization there. Charlotte organization came to Columbia and told us about this great idea to start an empowerment group that will help change the face of homelessness. We were interested back in 2010, and we've been in existence since then. We are a group of volunteers, homeless people, people who were once homeless, and our group is a group that's an advocacy group. We bring awareness and education. The goal of the group is to try to change the idea of what you see a homeless person is. And our plight is really to promote that homeless people might be homeless, but they're not hopeless.
This sounds like a very interesting program. Can you tell us more about your program?
Yeah, we meet every Monday at 6 o'clock at the Main Street Library. We meet with over 50 volunteers on a weekly basis. The group comes up with ideas and projects on how homeless people can give back to the community. They want to do a lot of projects that will help people see them for people, help people see that they do participate in their community, that they still are citizens and that they're good citizens. They want to give the vision that they're not shiftless, lazy, on drugs, and homeless without a reason. And so the group does a lot of things to try to make people aware and educate them. One of the great things we do is we go to different schools, organizations, and churches, and we have a panel awareness where actual homeless people who are homeless or who were once homeless talk to the audience about homelessness, share their story, and educate the public as to what homelessness is, what it's about, and how did they become homeless. We hear a lot of great stories about homeless people who were once homeless and they're no longer homeless. The group shares stories of people who are veterans who were homeless. One of the stories is about a gentleman who was homeless and working at Walmart while he was homeless. And he was fired only because he had a seizure and a history of seizures, and Walmart couldn't keep him on board because he had a seizure during the time of his employment. And so they nicely told him, you have to get your seizures together in order to come back. So he became jobless. His disability did not kick in for his seizures at that time, and he had no employment. So it's not just people who are homeless and not working. Some people are homeless and they still work. The organization also has a community project with McDuffie Street. We took an eyesore lot 2 years ago that was infested with drugs and crime, and the homeless men and women gardened and tore the soil and made that whole lot a community garden. So now it's called a community garden in Lion Street neighborhood. We got the Lion Street neighborhood to get involved and garden with us. because we are all citizens. That was a project 2 years ago in which Steve Benjamin sanctioned and cut the ribbon for. And if you walk or drive by McDuffie Street in Gervais, you'll see herbs, you'll see fruit, vegetables, and a community of people in which a community garden brought together partnership with the homelessness population. Another project we do is called Adopt a Block. So right across the street from Benedict College on Hardin and Blanding, the city has recognized that the homeless people have cleaned that block up for the last 3 years and has now labeled that our Homeless Helping Homeless block. So we have adopted the block on Blanding and Hardin. And every month, homeless people clean that area up, pick up trash, and keep it respectable and uplifting to the neighbors in that area. So we have an Adopt a Block project as well.
Outstanding. Given the weather's about to turn bad these days with the frigid colds we've been having, what is the shelter situation out in Columbia?
So for those of you who know or don't know, we have one emergency shelter which only operates during the winter time. After that, it is closed. And during certain increment weather, it's below 40 and below, that shelter will open. And that's the only time that shelter will open. Well, it's just a place for people to sleep. There's no food, there's no services being provided. It's a sleeping bin so that people wouldn't be cold and be unsafe on the street when it's extremely at that point of inclement weather. But at 5 o'clock in the morning, they have to get up and get out. And I think that's why we have a lot of people who are on our streets in the morning time that we see as we go to work daily who are homeless because they have to leave the shelter at a certain time early in the morning.
What is capacity of that particular shelter?
That capacity could be, and I'm not sure, that 60 to 80 people, maybe about 100, not very large. And as you know, we have over 2,000 homeless people here in Columbia. So we have other resources like transitions, which can serve anywhere from 100 to 200 people. But of course, they are filled. We also have the family shelter, which only houses families. They only have 16 beds or 20 beds. So what about families who are homeless? We have Hannah House that only serves mom and children. And so if I'm a dad, I have to be separated from my family. Sister care is only for battered women. So you think about the woman who is pregnant and needs a place to stay. Do we have a place for her? No, because many of our facilities, because of her pregnancy, and it becomes a medical liability, can't house a pregnant homeless woman.
Wow, thank you for that information, Charmaine. Tell me though, we understand what hunger in America has done to a lot of our children. How does homelessness affect our young children these days?
So as a school social worker, I see a lot of students every day. Many of our students are homeless. The school district has a program called PASS, P-A-S-S, and the goal of the PASS program, which is through the McKinney veto, is to ensure that even though children are homeless, that they can still get an education, and that we can provide an education to the school that they have always been attending. So if they're displaced or if they're in a shelter and that shelter is across town, they still can attend the school that they've been attending to for the last few years. So that's a great resource. In lieu of that, we have services that we have to provide for those students that are coming to our schools. Many of our schools now have what we call the backpack program. It's in partnership with Harvest Hope. It allows us to get food for those students who are hungry, who might be homeless, who might be on a fixed income, who even might be the head of their households on the weekend because mom and dad is working. And it allows us to provide snacks, nutritional snacks for kids in a bag to take home, such as noodles that they can heat up, granola bars, juices, fruit. And This allows them to have something to eat on the weekends if there's an issue of a parent being available to cook, or poverty, or low income, or actually just not enough food. When you come from siblings of a large family, that can be a challenge. So every Friday, we have students in the backpack program that get bags, and they're allowed to take these bags home, bring them back on Monday, and get snacks and food every Friday. Many of our schools have the backpack program, which is ideal. Um, a lot of our kids come to school feeling hopeless because they're displaced or living with family relatives or in shelters. Clothing is an issue because when you live with your house on your back, you know, you need clothing, you need a change of pants, shoes. So we have at our school a tiger closet in which we provide clothing for kids who are in need of clothing. Sometimes when you move from one place to another place, you lost your coat, you lost your sweater. So materials and school supplies, those things are also provided because, as you can imagine, moving from place to place again, children can lose notebooks, pencils. So schools now have a resource where they can provide school supplies as well as books for kids who are in a situation where they're being displaced.
Perfect. Sounds good. Let me ask this question then. Given the proliferation of the number of children that are homeless, is there a correlation between academics and behavior with homelessness?
Wow, sure, I'm sure there is. And that's why the McKinney veto is so important, because it allows that kid to maintain his education at the school that he's very comfortable with, keep those relationships that he's involved in so that academically he can continue to do good. You can imagine if you were a B student in a school and you had to go to another school and start all over again and form new relationships all over again, how that might impact you academically, how that might impact you socially, how that may make you feel. Does that help us improve the self-esteem of our students? As we know, self-esteem and academic success go hand in hand. Um, when we look at the numbers of kids nationally that go without food, it's really alarming. It tells you about the stress that having no food could mean it's hard for me to learn. 2.5 million children nationally is a new statistics of the children that are hunger or homeless. 2.5 million. And when I heard that, I just said, well, if there's X amount of people in the world, that's almost half of the people, 2.5 million children that are suffering from hunger and homelessness. That's a serious, alarming number.
Give us a picture of how things here in Columbia. What is Columbia and citizens are doing to address our homeless situation?
I think Columbia, for the first time, is beginning to have some serious dialogue with our city officials about our homeless situation. We are finding that it is impacting not only our schools, it's impacting our state economically, because what we're talking about is the issue of poverty. Poverty. I think we're having some serious dialogue. I think that resources are beginning to get developed, initiatives that not just the city is taking, but communities are taking. Family Promise is a great new initiative that the churches are taking. It's a combination of 14 congregations that have come together to say, let us do something about the homeless situation. And they're providing their church space to families who need shelter. That's going to be started in December. It took 3 years to get that particular initiative here in Columbia, as Greenville has it, Spartanburg, Florence. It's a nationwide program. So the people who've been working with Family Promise for the last 3 years have done an extraordinary job at getting that initiative here in Columbia. And that, again, will be another positive, creative resource that is going to be great and needed for families that are homeless.
You made mention earlier about what's happening with our inclement weather. Here we are on the brink of winter coming in the next few weeks. How does homelessness affect families during other times of the year?
Exactly. So when the weather is cold or when the seasons comes, we focus a lot on homelessness. But those times that the weather is great or not the season to be jolly, what happens then? Our people still exist. They still are in need. Um, on rainy, cold days, people still need shelter. So we have a lot more work to do to try to sustain resources that are effective and resources that um, combat the whole situation, not just looking at individual homeless people, but families who are homeless. Because for every homeless man and woman, there's got to be some children that are involved.
Man, we want to thank you so much for that very illuminating information. But you know, we have over 500 volunteers who work with over 1,200 children every year. They do some outstanding things. If some of these volunteers, some of our other viewers want to do some additional things, what can they do?
So I would say that, you have access to a lot of our resources in Colombia. United Way has a list of a lot of organizations that need volunteers. That could be one start. Then there's a lot of grassroots organizations that are around town. Restoration is one that feeds the homeless population every Saturday in Finley Park at 1 o'clock. It doesn't take anything for you to do. You don't even have to call. You can actually just show up in Finley Park at 1 o'clock and introduce yourself. You will find 20 to 30 people there to greet you and help you get on board to feeding the homeless on Saturdays. There are a lot of other grassroots organizations that feed in the parks and feed on Sunday. There's Food Not Bombs. They feed Sunday in the park. And there's also a homeless ministry that has service in the park on Sundays at 2 o'clock called Keeping It Real Ministries. If you go to Finley Park Saturdays and Sundays, you'll see a whole host of grassroots organizations in which you can get involved in as well.
Outstanding. Outstanding. Well, folks, again, that about wraps up our program for this segment. Again, my name is James Washington. On behalf of Richland County CASA, we want to thank Charmaine Primus for your time. We want to thank all you volunteers who've done outstanding work. Again, happy holiday season greetings. Until next time, have a great day.